10-12 Big 12 special teams show. Each week we come here to recap some of the biggest special teams plays in the Big 12. We're looking at week 5. Joining us for his second appearance here on the show, former TCU kicking specialist Jaden Oberkrom. Jaden, welcome back, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me, man. I'm excited. It was a crazy week, so I'm ready to get started, man.
No, absolutely. I think there were a ton of plays and a ton of things that we're not even going to get to on the show today that I think would have been worth talking about. Some weird special teams mistakes by TCU. We're not even talking about the block field goals, just like some punts that got dropped, some missed field goals from UCF. Like there was a lot of stuff in this game that we could have touched on. We've got 6 plays, given West Virginia blocked 2 field goals, that we want to walk through with you today. 6 highlights. Let's start today, Jaden, by talking about Big 12 Special Teams Player of the Week, Drae McCray, after he took a kickoff 100 yards back to the house, Texas Tech's first score. I mean, Houston marches down the field to open that game between Texas Tech and Houston, the game that Texas Tech eventually won. Houston's feeling great. Offense looked fantastic. Donovan Smith was like perfect. Kicked that ball off, and next thing you know, Texas Tech's offense doesn't even have to take the field before they're already scoring and making this a 7-7 game. I mean, it's always electric and exciting to get to watch somebody return a kick or a punt for a touchdown. We're going to watch this play while we talk about it. I want to hear your thoughts, both from the standpoint of the kickoff itself and the return.
Yeah, so I mean, first off, I mean the placement of the kick is wonderful. It's in the corner. It's a deep left kick. It looked like kind of like the return was meant to go to the right as well to match the kick. This is a huge momentum swing. Like you said, the offense doesn't have to come on the field, and no one expects this. You don't really expect to see guys run 100 yards down the field is to return a kickoff, especially when he's pinned in the corner like that. It makes it a lot more difficult. You don't have a lot of real estate over there because you're basically playing between the sidelines and the hash at that point. So the field just gets a lot smaller. Man, you can really see like how when they replay it, I mean, it's super just kind of like jumbled up, and he's just kind of trying to find a couple gaps. He finds 3 or 4 gaps, and next thing you know, I mean, he's just gone. It's off to the races. So, ended up being a good kick, ended up being a better return.
I mean, this is absolutely on McCray for the return and the coverage team, because look, like this is what we have been told here on the show. Like that's where you want it. You want it over to one side of the field. You want him up against the sideline. Like it makes it so much harder to get the return. And so to kick it into the end zone, put it over to one side, and for him to still find the path all the way through that mess of Houston defenders to the end zone. I mean, that's an incredible return. I think a lot of credit just to McCray there, as well as, the special teams for Texas Tech of clearing that path, making the holes for him, be able to make it all the way back down the field and into the end zone.
Yeah, it's one of those plays that just have, he happened to find 2 or 3 good gaps, and it's over. The returners are usually the best players on the team, or one of the fastest players on the team, and man, electric, bro.
Yeah, it's just like I was watching that game because obviously we didn't have any 11 a.m. games for the Big 12 this week, which was rough to have to wait all the way until 2:30, 3 o'clock to finally get some Big 12. So I popped that one on. I watched that first Houston drive, then saw that, and it was just like, okay, this game, you could already tell it was a very high scoring affair at the end. You kind of predicted at the beginning, like this game is off to the races. We've got touchdown drives that are coming quick. We got kickoff returns. That wasn't the only big special teams play for Texas Tech in this game. Dana Holgorsen kind of commented after the game that this is the worst their special teams have kind of looked in quite some time. Texas Tech also blocks a punt that they return for a touchdown. We're going to run that play here as well. I mean, you get a kickoff return for a touchdown. You get a block punt for a touchdown. That's some pretty big plays to have if you're Texas Tech in this game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm good friends with their special teams coordinator, Kenny Perry, and man, I know he's happy after this game. Let's take a look at this.
I mean, they came right through completely unblocked to get to that punt.
Yeah,
completely.
When I was watching this, I mean, they have 3 personal protects, right? And generally you see guys kind of at least slow down the rush at the beginning. At the line of scrimmage, they push, just delay them a second or so, so that the punter has more time. But man, for some reason, they just went straight into coverage mode instead of blocking down, at least just for a second and then go into coverage. So, I mean, you see 4 guys come through clean and it's 4 versus 3. Yeah, it's those aren't good odds, especially when you're putting from your, 30, 20-yard line. That's an easy scoop and score for them too. So, yeah, huge play, especially with the game being tied, man.
Yeah, obviously really disappointing for Houston there. Of course, that whole game was disappointing for Houston. But I mean, for Texas Tech, huge day on special teams. Absolutely huge game. And we'll see how that kind of helps them moving forward. Wasn't the only blocked punt in the Big 12 this weekend. Let's go over to Oklahoma versus Iowa State. This one, not for a touchdown, but it does end in the safety, which is always a very unusual thing. We don't get a lot of safeties in college football. You don't get a lot of block kicks for safeties. So this one definitely worth a watch as well. Walk me, I mean, with block kicks and punts, obviously something has gone wrong in your protection for this to happen from a special team standpoint. Now look, Iowa State, I would say their special teams, which has never been a strong suit during the Matt Campbell era, but it's been better. It has been better so far this season for Iowa State. But then in this spot, I gotta find that spot, man. There it is. To let them through in the way you did, like that is really disappointing. 4th and 15, you're already pinned so far deep. That's a really disappointing spot for Iowa State here.
Yeah. I mean, if the Oklahoma got there incredibly fast. I mean, he didn't even really get to punt the ball. I mean, he could have just taken it as soon as he was dropping it. So, yeah, I mean, something like that. It's generally a blocking issue, protection issue, and a get off time issue, right? I mean, if you're slow, add some, one guy doesn't do his job on coverage or blocking. I mean, it's game over, bro, especially at this level.
I mean, just clean. Yeah, he didn't even get really even halfway into his kick before there is a guy there taking him down. I mean, that is just, that's disappointing. That's rough. And in a game that was close, obviously Oklahoma pitched a second half shutout, completely shut down Iowa State's offense in the second half. But if you're Iowa State, like you're in an 8-point game, it's a close game, and then to allow this, Iowa State didn't score again. I mean, it's a heartbreaking play for Iowa State for a special teams unit that, again, it's not been good in Ames with Campbell's the head coach. It did feel like it has been making steps forward, including in the kicking game this season. I mean, obviously everything is not fixed. I still think this is one of the better Iowa State special teams units that Campbell has had in Ames, but this is definitely not the kind of thing that you want to see for an Iowa State team that is going to have to win ugly, going to have to win close games, going to have to win in the margins, and to have these kinds of things happen. Obviously it didn't impact the final score in that Iowa State lost because of it, but it's absolutely not the kind of thing you want to see. Watching these 2 punt blocks, obviously if you're Iowa State special teams, Houston special teams, you're going to pay attention and work on preventing this kind of stuff moving forward. But as an opposing special teams coach, like what are you seeing there that says, how could we do this again? How can we take advantage of this situation and try to replicate this when we go up against Iowa State or Houston?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. What a lot of people don't understand is when you block a punt in a game, that's probably the biggest momentum swing you could ever have, right? Because your offense goes out there, they go 3 and out, you're punting, so you're in your own territory at some point, on the other side of the 50, somewhere in there. They block a punt, they either get a safety off it, they score a touchdown. Like you said, Iowa State doesn't even score right after that play, which happened kind of at the mid second quarter. Man, it's just a huge momentum swing, and you put a big target on your back. That's what a lot of people don't get is once you block a field goal, once you have a field goal blocked for your team, or once you have a punt blocked for your team, man, that the rest of the season, all the coaches have all the tape. They all share tape, they all share film. You can see it on TV these days. Man, once you get one kicked block, they're bringing heat next game and the next game and the next game, and they're going to try to replicate it because there was some weakness, whether protection, someone doing their job, get off time with a punt or a kick, that went wrong. And so, man, when you put a target on your back like that, people are going to try even a lot harder to block those kicks, even on extra points or pooch punts or whatever it may be, they're going to be bringing heat the rest of the season.
Well, then Iowa State, Houston better be prepared because the opponents the next few weeks are definitely going to try and replicate that situation themselves. Okay, more blocks here. West Virginia knocks off TCU in Fort Worth. TCU had 2 opportunities to tie this game in the fourth quarter. 2 long field goals. Both get blocked. We're going to play through both of these. We'll start with the first one. This one coming with about 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter here. Walk me through this. What do you see here that allows West Virginia to be able to block this field goal attempt?
Yeah, so I mean, you see they're kind of overloading the left side there, as they should, because that's the direction TCU's kicking from the right hash, and they get a decent push. I wouldn't say they got a great push, but they got a decent push, kind of in the A and B, and the guy really who blocks it, he just puts his hand up at the right place at the right time. It's one of those. He didn't get the biggest push I've ever seen. The get off time, the snap and hold, all look great. I was watching this live when it happened, and man, I just kept replaying it, and man, the timing this guy had to jump up, and his hand just happened to be in the right place in that moment. Man, I don't want to call it lucky, but usually you see a bigger push to get a kicked block like that.
How much of this is just an incredible defensive play by West Virginia special teams? How much of this is the protection not being strong enough, Kell kicking the ball maybe too low, making it easier to block? Where do you feel like more of the responsibility lies here in this block field goal?
Yeah, I mean, he could have kicked it low. We're meeting today actually to talk about it. He says that he thought he hit it pretty good. So it's so hard to tell, especially because the camera goes up to see how the ball's peaking. But I mean, as far as protection, snap, hold, Griffin's never hit really low balls. He's always hit them actually quite high. So I mean, you just got to give credit to West Virginia, to that defensive player. I mean, it's just the timing of it. I mean, it's that TCU really did everything right in that situation.
You work with Kell. I'm curious, where does he prefer the ball? Center, closer to the left, closer to the right? Does he have a preference as to where he would prefer the ball to be if he's going to kick a field goal?
Yeah, a lot of times what a lot of people don't get is like the hashes in college are very wide. This is a great frame to show it. You can see the uprights are, I think it's around 18 feet wide, and then the hashes are, outside the uprights by, 3 or 4 yards. In the NFL, the hashes are even with the uprights. And so a lot of kicks are from the middle of the field in the NFL, or all the kicks are. And so when you get, anytime you're between the hashes in college football, it just makes the angle a little bit better. You're not worried about wind as much, if it's into. So, yeah, anywhere between the hashes is where most guys like it.
All right, so let's walk through the second one. 46 seconds left. 55-yard attempt. We know Kell has the leg for kicks like this. That's not the concern here. But again, another kick. Defender gets his not coming around. Just a defender gets his hand up and is able to nab this one, knock it out of the air. I mean, not to say that West Virginia's defensive players don't have some hops to them, but again, where do we feel like this fell apart for TCU?
Yeah, that's the question, right? I mean, everything looks good. The protection's good, the snap and hold's good, the get off time was good. The kick, it could have been low. I don't know. It's one of those things. It's up to Griffin's really the only one that would know, right? Just with the camera angles and stuff. And if it came off low and the guy happened to have his hand in the right place, then that could have been it. But everything else looks clean, man. So it's one of those things. I think Griffin Kell's the only one that knows.
I'm curious. Obviously they have game tape that everyone's going to go over. The team will, and they're going to have different angles. From a special team standpoint, like what kind of tape do they have to be able to review stuff from the kicking in the game? Like, do they have other angles that they've been able to shoot things at to get a better idea of kind of, was that low? Was it high? What happened? Or do they have access to that, or are they shooting stuff like that?
I know some colleges have this thing called TrackMan, which is basically like a technology radar system that tracks kicks, so it can tell you like how fast the kick's traveling, its apex. Like as soon as you kick it, it doesn't even have to take flight essentially. And so, but TCU doesn't have that. Only a couple, actually, West Virginia is one of the few schools that do have it. So yeah, you could have something like TrackMan that could do that. But as far as camera angles and stuff, it's really just not probably going to pick it up unless you have a camera angle straight from the sideline in slow motion, even from the line of scrimmage, which is usually not the case. Maybe from the press box, but it's usually too high up. So really, it's just going to come down to what Griffin thinks. I mean, you can see there's really not a push there. Maybe a yard. The guy just jumps up, big guy, hand in the right place type situation again. And yeah, it's heartbreaking for the Frogs, man.
I mean, you've spoken with Cal. I'm curious kind of his mindset here. How do you to have 2 field goal attempts blocked? We just don't see that kind of thing very often, especially not at a P5 level. Like stuff happens, FCS, G5, that's fine. For West Virginia to be able to do this twice, where's his headspace at, now and then moving forward?
Yeah. I mean, it's Griffin's had a great career. He's a 5th-year COVID senior, if you want to say that. And it's you really when I've struggled too. I mean, we all have games where we struggle. I like to just look back on the games, where I didn't and say like, okay, like, I'm the guy, right? TCU out of everybody they could have offered, they offered Griffin Kell. Out of any guy they could have put on the field, they put on Griffin Kell. And just the confidence they have in you through the last 5 years, right? I mean, you just got to look back on those good moments to make sure you keep that confidence rolling. And so, man, it's going to be pretty important for Griffin to look back on those good games he's had.
Yeah, big one, TCU, Iowa State, 2 teams we've talked about, unfortunately, negatively here today. Going to be facing off on Saturday, this coming weekend. See what kind of stuff we see from special teams there. Field goals might be heavily involved in that game. We'll just have to see what happens. We've talked about this before. I always think it's interesting to have this conversation. I mean, in moments like this, everyone's got their own way of processing things. But I mean, how do you wipe those memories away and get yourself focused for the next game coming up so that it doesn't weigh down on you?
Yeah, it's a good question. Kicking, it's all, it's hero or zero. You have highs and lows. And so, and I always tell people, my wife can attest to this too, just being with her since high school. Man, kicking really does change you. In high school, I used to be, the class clown and super outgoing and stuff. And I'm still like having fun, but at the same time, like, man, these days I am the most even keel guy you've ever met. And kicking is the reason. It really teaches you can't really have highs and you can't have lows. You just gotta, stay flatline, stay the same. If you have a good game, you got to perform next week. You have a bad game, you got to perform next week. You're always having to perform, right? And so it really just teaches you to stay stable. Or some people call it emotionally constipated, right? It teaches you and it changes, you kind of in a good way, sometimes, but yeah, it's hard. You got to stay stable in the highs and the lows.
All right, we're gonna wrap this show up with, we love a game winner. There's nothing more exciting. I know kick returns, block punts, but those are great. There's not much better from a kicker standpoint than being able to line up and kick a game winner. And obviously, there was still time left in this game. Baylor's defense had to get a final stop from UCF. Colton Boomer missing the field goal for the UCF to win. But for Baylor, this ends up being the game winner for Baylor in the absolutely historic comeback win. We got to play this one. Isaiah Hankins, 25-yard attempt. He's 1 of 2 on the day. Hit his other one in the second half. Right down. I mean, no question whatsoever. Puts Baylor up 36-35. That would be the final score in this one. I mean, Jaden, is there anything as a former kicker that gets you more jacked up than a game winner?
I mean, nothing comes close. Nothing comes close to it. So, man, that's huge for Baylor. I mean, Baylor's had a rough start to the season, and so to bounce back on a road game against UCF. I don't care if it's a 20-yarder or a 60-yarder, and it just to hit a field goal to put your team to make your team stay relevant throughout the season, especially on a road game, in a conference game. I mean, that's huge, man. Super proud of that kid.
I mean, it doesn't matter. Like the pressure of hitting this, obviously it's not a final seconds of the game kind of thing, but I mean, there's only a minute 21 left. You realize this is probably the last chance your offense is going to have with the ball. You're down. That's a lot of pressure on Hankins, whether it's 25 yards, 5 yards, whatever. I mean, what do you feel like his mindset is? What is the mindset of a kicker in this situation? I know we've talked about this, but it's always interesting to me to hear about like the mindset you've got to have lining up for what could be, and in this case was, the game-winning field goal.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, everyone's different, but I will say one common trait I've seen with the best guys, man, they want the game to come down to this. That every game they're like, man, I want to be the guy who goes out there and has to hit a kick to win. And man, this kick, I mean, if he misses it, they lose, and if they make it, they win. It's not like it's a tie ball game here. And so, man, he might be one of those kids that like he wants the ball in his hands at the end of the game. That's really what you see with the best kickers across the country is they want the game to come down to that.
Huge moment for him. Congrats. Always love a game winner. You'd love that. I mean, to me, as a kicker, if I'm a kicker, that's the dream. Like I just want one game winner that I put through and then I can retire. I'll never have to have another miss. Like that's the thing that everyone can remember me for. I was huge for Hankins. Absolutely awesome for Baylor to have that giant comeback. Massive. Just again, there are plays that we didn't even get to today because I think this was like special teams played, not necessarily always in the outcome, but I mean, just a ton of huge special teams plays this weekend. There were, again, TCU had some weird drops. If we were going to do this for 2 hours, we could. I don't think that's a great idea, but this has been awesome as always. So many huge impactful moments. We're just going to have even more as the season progresses. Jaden, I appreciate your insight and your knowledge, and you are always welcome on the show, and you're a fantastic guest. Do me a favor, remind everybody what it is you're doing, and if they're interested, where they can go to learn more.
Yeah. Basically, man, we're just training kickers and punters across the country, and we're based out of Dallas. And we send a lot of these kids to Big 12 schools. I think we have 3 Big 12 schools right now. So you can check us out at texaskicking.com, and it's busy right now. So if I don't reply to emails, sorry, but man, it's working. We love what we do, and we're doing it for a good reason. So appreciate you guys.
You guys are putting some winners in the Big 12 and around college football. So keep up the great work, Jaden. We will have you back again before this season is over. Because I mean, again, you do a great job. Your insight's incredible, and always appreciate it, bud.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate you guys.
Very excited to have the leg who helped Baylor take the lead for good against UCF on Saturday. Isaiah Hankins, kicker for Baylor. Isaiah, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you.
Look, it was a big kick, kicking that game-winning field goal against UCF to help Baylor's biggest comeback in school history get that big win on the road in Orlando. We're going to play the clip here in a second, but I want to ask you first off, when you went out there to kick that field goal, did you know at the time that was going to be a game winner, that was going to be the play that really kind of decided who was going to win that game?
I did. I thought that we were going to be able to run the clock down a little bit more, but I knew that was going to be kind of the game decider. So, yeah. I
mean, obviously the defense still had to come out, make enough plays to stop UCF from coming down and kicking their own game winner or from getting a touchdown to try and retake the lead. But I'm curious to me, we're going to play this as we chat because I think it's really cool to get to see this kick over and over again. I'm curious from your standpoint, like how do you prepare for a kick like this mentally compared to another field goal? I mean, you had 2 other field goals in the game. You had a miss in the first half. You had a big make in the second. How does your mindset change, or is it the same way when you line up for a kick like this?
So, honestly, it's kind of weird. It kind of depends on the game and what point in the season I'm in. So I would say like kind of the first game of the season, kind of the nerves are up and, you're kind of just like seeing, you're kind of more nervous at the beginning of the season-ish. And then like this was, I think, game 5. And so honestly, all the kicks kind of felt the same this game. And like what was cool about it was like this game in particular, I prayed for peace and asked the Lord for that, and he totally gave it to me. And so like I was not really like in a nervous or overthinking type of headspace at all during this game. So all all the kicks kind of felt pretty routine, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we had UCF kicker Colton Boomer on the show back in week 2 after he kicked a game winner against Boise State.
Yeah.
He talked a lot about his faith and kind of what he does on the sideline. Like, how big is your faith in what you do here when you play football?
I think it's everything. I think the fact that I can have a God that loves me and doesn't put any weight on like my performance, and I know that like I'm all right if I don't perform, and I'm all right if I do perform, you know. I think that gives me a really solid ground to stand on, you know, in any situation. And so I think that's everything. And like the piece that I think I'm able to have on the field, that like that's not from me, you know. So that is everything.
It's awesome. We've had Jaden Oberkrom here on the show a couple times, and he's talked about like he became a really level-headed guy as a kicker, like really had to almost become not emotionless, but really prevent himself from having high highs and high lows to be able to be effective as a kicker. Is that the similar process you've kind of found as you've been doing this for a while?
Yeah, it kind of is. Because like after a game that like this, there's like kind of two things that I could do. Is like I could like listen to all the like, okay, congrats, like this is awesome, huge win, you know. I could like listen to that and dwell on it, or I could just kind of like listen to it, hang out for a sec, and then just kind of move on, or just kind of take everything with a grain of salt, you know. And so like the way I kind of have to view all the praise and the criticism is just like whatever comes my way. Like I just kind of stay on like a level, like kind of like I wouldn't say emotionless, but kind of like you said, it's kind of like I don't want to get too high and I don't want to get too low, you know?
Yeah. Okay, I gotta ask this. What would be a more difficult kick to you? That 20-something yarder game winner, you know, it's closer, but it's a game winner, there's a lot of pressure, or a 50-something yarder when you guys are already up 2 touchdowns? What's a more difficult kick in your mind?
The 50 something. Yeah. Yeah, that'd be a more fun one. I mean, actually, I don't know. They're both really fun, but I'd probably say the 50 something is a little harder.
I mean, yeah, with the distance, we've I love doing the show because I love learning about the process that special team specialists have and kickers have to go through, and just the little intricacies of the ankle and the foot placement and so on. And so like I'm curious, and I like to know this, where do you like the ball? Like if you were going to say like, I can put the ball anywhere on the field for me to line up, kick a field goal, where is that for you?
Honestly, like my coaches have asked me that too. And I know this sounds like kind of cliche, but I don't really have a preference, you know. Like it depends. It also depends on the day and where the wind's going. So like sometimes my ball has a natural draw to the right. And so like that might be good on some days if the wind is in my face to be on the right hash, because then like it just kind of naturally draws in, you know. But it really, like I don't have that much of a preference, but sometimes depending on the wind and like how tight I am or how loose I am and how I'm like hitting the ball, you know, then I'll assess it like on the daily basis, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Again, like this is just, I find all this very interesting. Isaiah, man, again, congrats on the game winner. That's awesome. You know, you as a kicker, as a special team specialist, you don't get as many, you know, opportunities to kind of make a name for yourself and have a moment that everyone's going to remember. And so to be able to have this opportunity to make that kick to get the win for Baylor, I know I don't want you to get too high here, but congrats, man. That was pretty cool. I'm sure you are enjoying that moment as much as you can.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm definitely enjoying it. It was a lot of fun. So I appreciate you.